She was a forgotten genius, now homeless, fixing a child's broken bicycle on a cold Chicago street. He was a billionaire CEO watching from afar, a father lost in grief. Neither knew the other's secret, nor how their pasts were devastatingly intertwined. What happens when an act of pure kindness unearths a web of corporate deceit, a lost legacy, and a chance for two broken souls to rebuild more than just a city? This story of hidden identities and second chances will grip you. Have you ever underestimated someone based on their appearance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't go anywhere. Subscribe and hit the bell, because this is a transformation you have to see to believe. Don't cry, little one. I'll fix that bike for you if it's the last thing I do, Clara said, kneeling beside the boy with the scraped face, ignoring her own dirty hands and that her once elegant beige dress was now stained with mud. The boy, with dried blood on his cheek, looked at her suspiciously but stopped crying. My dad says I shouldn't talk to strangers, he murmured, wiping his tears with the sleeve of his black coat. Your dad is very smart, Clara replied as she examined the loose chain of the bicycle. But sometimes even strangers can help you when you fall. A few meters away, a man in a dark suit watched the scene with a frown, his hands in his coat pockets. He had been distracted by a business call when he heard his son's cry. What's your name? Clara asked, beginning to manipulate the chain with surprising skill. Leo. And you? Clara. You know, I also had a bike like this when I was a girl. But you're all dirty, Leo said with the cruel frankness of children. Where's your bike now? Clara smiled sadly as her fingers worked deftly on the twisted wheel. Sometimes life takes things away, Leo. But the important thing is that when someone falls, you have to help them get up, just like I'm doing with you right now. Alex, Leo's father, took a step forward, unsure if he should intervene. At that moment, he heard something that left him paralyzed. My mom died 2 years ago, Leo said suddenly. We lived in a nice building, but now I don't like it because she's not there anymore. Clara's eyes widened. A building with columns and a fountain at the entrance? In Lincoln Park. Yes. How do you know? Because I designed it, Clara whispered, her hands stopping for a moment. I was an architect before I lost everything. Alex held his breath. He recognized the name, Clara Evans, the brilliant architect whose design had won the competition for his company's most emblematic building, Sterling Constructions. The woman who had disappeared from the professional world years ago, and now she was here on the street, fixing his son's bicycle. Clara adjusted the chain and straightened the wheel. With a smile, she stood up and handed the bicycle to Leo. There, kid, good as new. Awesome, Leo exclaimed, surprised. Thanks. It was then that Alex decided to approach an idea forming in his mind. This woman had created beauty from nothing once. Maybe she could do it again. Miss Evans. Alex approached with calculated steps as Clara wiped her hands on her already stained dress. Clara looked up, surprised. Her eyes showed a flash of recognition, but she quickly hid it. Do we know each other? She asked cautiously. Not directly, Alex replied. I'm Alexander Sterling, Leo's father and owner of Sterling Constructions. Clara tensed visibly. Her hands, previously steady while repairing the bicycle, now trembled slightly. I see, she said in a controlled voice. Well, your son's bike is fixed. Excuse me. Wait. Alex gently stopped her by the arm. I have a proposal for you. Dad? Is Miss Clara coming with us? Interrupted Leo, who was already riding his bicycle again. Alex looked at his son and then at Clara. In his eyes, there was a mixture of compassion and something else, perhaps, opportunity. I need someone to look after Leo, someone I can trust. And from what I've just seen, you have a gift with children, and with bicycles. Clara let out a bitter laugh. Are you offering me a job as a nanny? Me, the architect who designed your most important building. I'm offering you a new beginning, Alex corrected. Lodging, food, a decent salary, and perhaps with time. With time what? With time, we could talk about other arrangements, professional ones. Clara looked at Leo, who was circling with his bicycle, seemingly oblivious to the conversation but clearly happier than when she found him crying. Why me? There are thousands of qualified nannies in the city. Because my son hasn't smiled like that in 2 years, Alex replied with sincerity. And because I recognize talent when I see it, whether in an architectural plan or fixing a bicycle. 3 hours later, Clara found herself in front of a mansion in the Gold Coast neighborhood. The chauffeur Alex had sent for her waited patiently as she contemplated the imposing structure. She carried a small backpack with her meager belongings. "Are you going in, miss?" the chauffeur asked kindly. Clara took a deep breath and nodded. She had nothing to lose. Or perhaps she had already lost everything. The main door opened before she knocked, revealing an older woman with a severe expression and rigid posture. "You must be the new nanny," she said critically, examining her from head to toe. "I am Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper." "Clara Evans," she introduced herself, extending a hand that Mrs. Gable deliberately ignored. "Mr. Sterling informed me about your situation," the woman continued. "I have prepared a room for you, and there are clean clothes waiting. I suggest you take a bath before approaching the child." Clara bit her lip, suppressing a sharp retort. This was what she had accepted, wasn't it? A new form of humiliation. "Clara?" Leo's enthusiastic voice broke the tension as he appeared running down the hallway. "You came? Come see my car collection." Mrs. Gable frowned at the familiarity, but Leo was already pulling Clara by the sleeve of her worn sweater. "She must bathe first, Master Leo," Mrs. Gable intervened. "It doesn't matter. She's with me," Leo replied with the innocent authority of a wealthy child. "My dad said Clara is special." That night, after a bath that seemed to wash away years of her life on the streets, Clara found herself in a room larger than the last apartment she had lived in. The clothes they had left for her were simple but of good quality. As she brushed her blonde hair, now clean and shiny, she contemplated her reflection in the mirror. Who was this woman? The talented architect? The beggar who repaired bicycles? Or this strange new intermediate version? A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she said. Alex entered cautiously as if invading foreign territory. "I wanted to make sure you were comfortable," he explained, staying near the door. "It's more comfort than I've had in a long time," Clara replied sincerely. "Leo hasn't stopped talking about you. It seems you've made a lasting impression." Clara smiled slightly. "He's a good boy. You must be proud." "I am," Alex affirmed, and then added, "I reviewed your career. You were brilliant." "I was," Clara agreed, emphasizing the past tense. "What happened?" Clara looked away. "Life happened, Mr. Sterling. My brother fell ill with cancer. I gave up everything to care for him. Then came the economic crisis, then a bad investment, or rather a scam, and suddenly there's no safety net to catch you." Alex nodded, processing the information. "Call me Alex, please." A comfortable silence fell between them. "Why did you really bring me here?" Clara finally asked. "And don't tell me it's just for Leo." Alex looked at her directly. "Because I recognize wasted talent when I see it, and because perhaps we can both help each other." Before Clara could respond, Leo appeared in the doorway, already in pajamas. "Will you tell me a story, Clara?" he asked with pleading eyes. "Dad is always too busy." Alex had the decency to look ashamed. Clara looked between father and son, noticing the invisible chasm that separated them. "Of course, kid," she replied with a smile, using the affectionate term she had used before. "But first, what do you say we invite your dad to listen to?" Leo looked at his father with cautious hope. "Can you, Dad? Please." Alex looked at his watch, then at his son, and finally at Clara, who watched him with a silent challenge in her eyes. "Of course," he replied, loosening his tie. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." And so began Clara's first night under the Sterling roof, with a story about a boy, a magical bicycle, and the adventures that awaited him. What none of them knew was that their own story was just beginning to be written. 3 weeks had passed since Clara crossed the threshold of the Sterling mansion. The routine had been established with surprising ease. Breakfast with Leo while Alex reviewed documents, afternoons of homework and games, and occasional dinners where the father joined them when his commitments allowed. This afternoon, Clara and Leo were in the backyard. She had improvised a small architecture workshop using cardboard boxes, popsicle sticks, and modeling clay. "Is this how you used to live?" Leo asked as he tried to build a tower. "Making pretend houses?" Clara smiled, helping him stabilize the structure. "Not exactly. I drew the plans, the designs that later became real buildings, like where you lived with your mom." "I miss her a lot," Leo said, letting the tower collapse. "Sometimes, when Dad thinks I'm asleep, I hear him talking to himself, as if she were there." Clara felt a lump in her throat. "Love doesn't disappear, Leo. It just changes form. Like your life," the boy observed with a perceptiveness that sometimes surprised Clara. "You were an architect, and now you're my nanny." "I suppose so," she conceded thoughtfully. "But you know what? Sometimes the best designs emerge after a demolition." From his office window, Alex observed the scene. Clara had transformed his son in a few weeks. The reserved and sad boy now laughed. He asked questions. He had even started riding his bicycle again with enthusiasm. Alex found himself smiling involuntarily, something he rarely did since Eleanor's death. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Victor Thorne, his business partner since college, entered with a confident stride. Tall, with perfectly styled hair and an impeccable suit, Victor projected an image of absolute success. "Alex," he greeted with excessive enthusiasm. "I have the documents for the Reforma project. We need your signature to start demolitions next week." Alex nodded, taking the folder extended to him. As he reviewed the papers, Victor approached the window. Well, that's the famous nanny you told me about. You didn't mention she was so interesting." The tone in Victor's voice made Alex look up. "She's good with Leo, and quite attractive for being a, what did you say, a down-on-her-luck ex-architect." Victor adjusted his tie. "I think I'll come visit you more often, old friend." Alex felt a pang of irritation he couldn't explain. "Focus on the project, Victor. The demolitions in the historic district are generating protests." "Pure sentimental nonsense," Victor dismissed. "That land is worth millions, and those old buildings are just obstacles. Your father would have understood perfectly." Alex frowned at the mention of his father. Edward Sterling Sr. had built the real estate empire with a heavy hand, without concern for cultural heritage or the social consequences of his projects. Alex had tried to balance his father's legacy with a more humane vision, but Victor constantly pushed him towards the hard line of business. "I'll sign after reviewing the details," Alex said, closing the folder. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I promised Leo we'd have dinner together." Victor smiled maliciously. "Are you sure it's just for Leo?" he insinuated, looking towards the garden again. "I wouldn't blame you, brother. Loneliness can be very tough after so long." Alex glared at him. "It's not what you think, Victor." "Whatever you say," Victor shrugged. "But I wouldn't mind getting to know her better. Maybe I'll ask her out." "She works for me," Alex replied with more abruptness than he intended. "Getting territorial, are we?" Victor laughed, heading for the door. "You need to relax, Alex. It was just a joke. See you tomorrow at the board meeting." When Victor left, Alex looked out the window again. Clara was now helping Leo ride his bicycle around the garden. The boy had been afraid to get back on after the accident, but there he was, pedaling with Clara running beside him, lightly holding him. "You're doing it, Leo. You can almost do it alone," she heard her encourage the boy. "Look, Dad," Leo shouted, noticing his father at the window. "I'm riding again." Alex raised his hand in approval, his eyes briefly meeting Clara's. She smiled at him, a genuine smile that took him by surprise. It was the first time he had seen her smile like that. That night, after putting Leo to bed, Clara was heading to her room when she found Alex in the living room, looking at old photographs. "Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt," she said, ready to retreat. No, please stay, Alex requested, closing the album. I appreciate what you did today with the bicycle. It was nothing, Clara replied, approaching cautiously. Sometimes fear is harder to repair than a loose chain. Alex nodded, offering her a seat across from him. Eleanor, my wife, died in a car accident, he said suddenly. I was on a business call when it happened. I was always on a business call. Clara remained silent, respecting the unexpected confession. Leo was with her, Alex continued. He was physically unharmed, but something broke in him that day, and I haven't known how to fix it. Some things don't get fixed, Alex, Clara replied softly. They just get rebuilt differently. Alex looked at her intently. Like you, like all of us, she corrected. A comfortable silence settled between them until Alex asked, What happened to your brother? Clara sighed. He passed away 3 years ago. I fought to keep him with the best treatments, sold everything, mortgaged my future. And in the end, it wasn't enough. I'm sorry. Me too. But I don't regret it. I'd give everything again for him. I understand that feeling, Alex confessed. I'd do anything for Leo. Except be present, Clara pointed out, immediately regretting her audacity. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. No, you're right, Alex admitted, surprising her. I hide in work. It's easier to build buildings than to face the void Eleanor left. Clara stood up and walked to the window. Do you know what's most ironic? I designed that building, the one in Lincoln Park, thinking about spaces that would bring families together. And now I live in a mansion designed to keep people apart. She smiled sadly. So many rooms, so many spaces, and so little connection. Alex had never thought of his home that way. He watched her as she contemplated the night through the window, her profile illuminated by the dim light of the lamp. For the first time in 2 years, he felt something awakening within him, something uncomfortable yet comforting. Clara, he said softly, thank you. For what? For getting Leo to ride his bicycle again. What Alex didn't say, what he was just beginning to understand, was that Clara wasn't just helping his son overcome his fears. She was also awakening parts of him he thought had died along with Eleanor, and that terrified and fascinated him in equal measure. The connection between Clara and Alex is growing, but Victor Thorne's presence looms large, and the controversial demolition project could change everything. Will Clara's past collide with her present in an explosive way? And can Alex find a balance between his father's legacy and his own awakening heart? Let us know what you think will happen next in the comments. If you're invested in their story, please hit that like button. The main hall of the Sterling mansion glittered with lights and animated conversations. Executives, politicians, and important figures from the real estate world circulated with champagne glasses, celebrating the anniversary of Sterling Constructions. In a corner far from the bustle, Clara observed the scene uncomfortably. The navy blue dress Mrs. Gable had insisted she borrow? You can't appear dressed like the staff, child. Fit surprisingly well, but it felt like a costume. That color suits you very well, Mrs. Gable said, appearing beside her with a tray of canapes. You almost look like the architect you used to be. Clara looked at her, surprised. It was the first time the housekeeper had spoken to her with anything resembling kindness. Thank you, though I'm not sure I belong here. Nonsense, the older woman replied. I've seen how Mr. Alex looks at you when he thinks no one notices. Excuse me? Mrs. Gable smiled enigmatically. I've known that man since he was a boy. I haven't seen him so alive since Mrs. Eleanor was with us. Before Clara could respond, Leo appeared through the crowd, elegant in his small suit, but clearly bored. Clara, can we go now? Dad's parties are super boring. Your father wanted you to be here, Leo, Clara explained. It's important to him. But he's barely spoken to me all night, the boy protested. He's too busy with those men in suits. Clara looked towards where Alex was conversing with a group of investors, Victor Thorne among them. As if sensing her gaze, Alex looked up and smiled briefly before returning to his conversation. I'll make you a deal, Clara whispered to Leo. We endure half an hour more, and then I'll read you 2 stories instead of 1 before bed. 3, Leo negotiated. 2.5, Clara counter-offered, eliciting a giggle from the boy. Miss Evans, Victor's voice interrupted their small negotiation. I finally have the pleasure of meeting you formally. Clara shook his hand cautiously. There was something vaguely familiar about this man, but she couldn't place it. Mr. Thorne. Please, Victor, he insisted, holding her hand longer than necessary. Alex has told me a lot about you, the prodigy architect who now cares for his son. Fascinating career change. The condescending tone did not go unnoticed by Clara, who withdrew her hand politely but firmly. Life takes unexpected turns, she replied with dignity. Indeed. Victor leaned in slightly. Though I wonder, don't you miss the world of architecture? I understand you were brilliant. Leo is a much more important project than any building, Clara replied, placing a protective hand on the boy's shoulder. How touching. Victor smiled, though the smile didn't reach his eyes. But surely a mind like yours is still interested in large projects, like our development in the historic downtown. A complete urban renewal. Something in Victor's words triggered an alarm in Clara. Urban renewal in historic downtown? Ah, Alex hasn't told you. Victor seemed to enjoy her expression. The most ambitious project of Sterling Constructions to date. We start demolitions next week. Which area exactly? The entire quadrant between Messon and Queen Streets. Old buildings, no real value. We'll replace them with an ultramodern complex. Clara paled. That was precisely the area where she had lived with her brother, where she had her last memories of a dignified life. Those buildings have historical and cultural value, she objected, momentarily forgetting her position. Some date back to the 19th century. Victor waved his hand dismissively. Sentimentalism. Progress requires sacrifices. True progress preserves identity while building the future, Clara retorted, her voice attracting the attention of some nearby guests. Interesting perspective, Alex intervened, having approached unnoticed. For someone who is no longer an architect, the comment, delivered lightly as a joke for those present, hit Clara like a slap. Excuse me, she said, trying to withdraw. Leo should be in bed already. Wait. Alex stopped her gently. There's something I want to announce, and I'd like you to be present. Alex moved to the center of the room and gently tapped his glass to get everyone's attention. The murmur of conversations gradually ceased. Friends and colleagues, he began. I appreciate your presence on this very special anniversary. Today we not only celebrate the past of Sterling Constructions but also its future. I am pleased to officially announce the start of our most ambitious project, the renewal of the Queen Mizon Quadrant in historic downtown. Enthusiastic applause interrupted his words. Clara remained motionless, Leo clinging to her hand, feeling the ground open beneath her feet. The final plans have been approved, Alex continued, and demolitions will begin next week. I invite you to see the model we've prepared especially for this occasion. An assistant unveiled a huge model in the center of the room. Clara approached as if in a trance, immediately recognizing the area. There, marked in red for demolition, was the small Art Deco building where she had lived with her brother during his illness. You can't do this, she murmured, more to herself than to others. Excuse me? Alex asked, frowning. Clara looked up, meeting Alex's gaze. I said you can't do this, she repeated more firmly. Those buildings are cultural heritage. Families have lived there for generations. An uncomfortable silence fell upon the guests. Victor smiled subtly, as if enjoying the spectacle. Clara, can we discuss this in private? Alex suggested in a low voice. What for? She asked, her voice trembling with contained emotion. So you can explain how your vision of progress justifies destroying the home where I cared for my dying brother. The last place I was happy? Alex paled. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the building on Messon Street, number 25. Clara pointed to the exact spot on the model, where I lived until I lost everything. where I cared for my brother with terminal cancer, while you were planning to turn it into rubble. The guests began to murmur. Victor stepped forward. Miss, I think you're confusing personal matters with business. Perhaps you should retire. Clara looked at him intently, and suddenly, she recognized him. You, she said with sudden clarity. Victor Thorne, the financial advisor who convinced me to invest my brother's last savings in that phantom fund. Victor's face hardened, but he maintained his composure. I don't know what you're talking about. Clara Evans, she said, drawing herself up to her full height. Architect, the same one who designed the Lincoln Park Tower for Sterling Constructions. The same one you swindled 3 years ago, leaving me with nothing for my brother's treatments. A murmur of astonishment swept through the room. Alex looked alternately between Clara and Victor, confusion giving way to understanding. Are you that Clara Evans? Alex asked as if seeing her for the first time. The very same, she confirmed, with a dignity that contrasted with the tears beginning to form in her eyes. The one who designed spaces to unite families while hers was falling apart. The one who believed in architecture as a way to improve lives, not destroy them. Without waiting for a response, Clara took Leo by the hand. Come on, kid. It's time to go. But Clara, the boy protested, confused by the situation. Clara, wait. Alex tried to stop her. I didn't know. That's the problem, isn't it? She replied sadly. You never know. You never see what you destroy. And with those words, Clara left the room, leaving behind a stunned silence and a completely bewildered Alex. Outside, the rain had begun to fall, as if the sky itself wanted to cleanse the newly opened wounds. Mrs. Gable silently approached Leo, who was looking towards the door where Clara had exited. Come, child, she said softly. I'll take you to your room. But Clara promised to read me stories. Leo protested, tears in his eyes. Tonight you'll have to make do with me, the old woman replied, directing an accusatory look at Alex before taking the boy away. In the middle of the room, surrounded by guests pretending not to have witnessed the incident, Alex found himself alone, looking at the project model that now, somehow, seemed less impressive and more destructive than he had ever noticed. The rain fell relentlessly on Chicago. Clara walked aimlessly, soaked to the bone, her elegant blue dress now clinging to her body like a second skin. She had walked for hours, processing the betrayal, the pain, the humiliation. Not because Alex didn't know who she was that she could understand, but because he was about to demolish the last tangible piece of her history. She stopped under the awning of a small closed shop. In front of her, the historic downtown slept, oblivious to the sentence hanging over its centuries-old roofs. Clara observed the old buildings, the facades that had survived earthquakes, fires, the relentless passage of time. Soon, many of them would be just memories, unless an idea began to form in her mind. She took a small notebook from her drenched bag. Her architect's habit of always carrying one had never left her, and began to write frantically, shielding the pages from the rain. If she couldn't stop the demolition from within, perhaps she could do it from without. In the Sterling mansion, Alex hadn't slept. He obsessively reviewed the project files, contracts, impact studies, looking for something he hadn't seen before. At dawn, when Mrs. Gable entered with coffee, he barely noticed her presence. She hasn't returned, the woman informed him without him asking. Alex nodded distractedly. The boy asked for her all night, Mrs. Gable continued. He cried himself to sleep. This time Alex looked up. I know, I heard him. And you did nothing. What could I do, Esperanza? She left. The old woman placed the cup forcefully on the desk, spilling some coffee. Go look for her, of course. As a real man would have. Alex looked at her, surprised. In 30 years, Mrs. Gable had never spoken to him like that. I don't know where she is, he replied, aware of how weak his excuse sounded. On the streets, in the rain, without money or a place to go. Mrs. Gable shook her head in disgust. The same situation you found her in, only now with a more broken heart. It wasn't my intention. Your intentions don't matter, sir. Your actions do. The woman headed for the door. I'll prepare breakfast for Leo. He, at least, deserves some normalcy. When the door closed, Alex buried his face in his hands. How had he reached this point? He reviewed the project documents again and stopped at a name. Victor Thorne. Clara's words echoed in his mind. The financial advisor who convinced me to invest my brother's last savings. He picked up the phone and dialed. I need all the information on Clara Evans and any investments managed by Victor Thorne in the last 5 years. Yes, it's urgent. A week later, historic downtown buzzed with unusual activity. Banners and posters appeared on facades and lampposts. Save our heritage. No to demolition. History cannot be torn down. Clara, in borrowed clothes and with renewed energy, organized the neighbors in the central square. We can't let them destroy our roots, she explained to a group of residents. These buildings aren't just stone and cement. They're our collective memory. But what can we do against such a powerful company? Asked an old woman, her face marked by decades of life in the neighborhood. Resist together, Clara replied, and show them there's another way to progress, one that doesn't require demolishing the past. Clara spread some plans on an improvised table. For days, she had worked on an alternative project, a renovation that preserved the historic facades while modernizing the interiors, creating functional spaces without destroying the essence of the neighborhood. This is what we could have, she explained, pointing to her designs. A living neighborhood that honors its history while embracing the future. The neighbors gathered around, intrigued. Soon, local journalists began to cover the story. The homeless ex-architect challenging one of the country's most powerful construction companies. In his office, Alex watched the news on his computer. The image of Clara leading a peaceful protest in front of City Hall left him paralyzed. She looked different, strong, determined, passionate. This was the woman who had designed the Lincoln Park Tower, not the submissive nanny who had lived in his house. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. His assistant entered with a thick folder. Sir, here's the investigation you requested. Alex took the folder and began to review it. With each page, his expression hardened. The evidence was overwhelming. Victor had orchestrated an elaborate scam that had left Clara and other investors ruined. Most alarmingly, he had used Sterling Construction's connections to give legitimacy to his scheme. Another knock on the door. This time it was Mrs. Gable. Excuse me, sir, she said, placing something on his desk. I found this while cleaning Miss Clara's room. It was a worn notebook. Alex opened it cautiously and found pages full of designs, sketches of the historic downtown project, but reimagined. It wasn't a demolition, but a revitalization. The concept was brilliant. Preserve what's valuable, renovate what's necessary, add modern elements that complement rather than destroy. I also found this, Mrs. Gable added, handing him an envelope. Inside were drawings made by Leo, him, his father, and Clara together in a park. Family. On the back, in childish handwriting, I love you very much, Clara. Please come back. Alex felt something break inside him. How is Leo? Sad. Confused. He asks for her constantly. Alex nodded, making a decision. Please tell Raoul to prepare the car. Are you going to look for her? I'm going to do what I should have done from the beginning. Listen. Clara was in the middle of an interview with a local channel when she noticed the black car parking nearby. Her heart leaped as she recognized Alex getting out, dressed informally instead of his usual suit. And so, with citizen participation, we can create a project that benefits everyone, she continued, trying to maintain her composure as Alex approached. When the interview ended, Alex was waiting a few meters away. Clara approached cautiously. Did you come to serve an eviction order? She asked with defensive irony. I came to listen, he replied simply, and to ask for your forgiveness. Clara didn't expect that. She crossed her arms, protecting her heart. Why now? Because you were right. Alex took the notebook from his pocket. About everything. The neighborhood, Victor, the project. I found the evidence of the scam. Clara took the notebook, her fingers briefly brushing Alex's. I wasn't looking for revenge, she said softly. I just wanted to save what's left. I know. Alex looked around at the neighbors watching them curiously. I saw your designs. They're extraordinary. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. Leo misses you, Alex finally said. Me too. Clara looked away. I've started something here. I can't just abandon it. I'm not asking you to, Alex replied. I'm asking you to lead it. Officially. Clara looked at him, confused. What do you mean? I want you to redesign the project, Alex explained. As the lead architect for Sterling Constructions. A renovation, not a demolition. Clara's eyes widened. Are you serious? I've never been more serious. Alex extended a hand. What do you say? Partners. Clara looked at the extended hand, thoughtful. And Victor? He no longer works with us. In fact, he'll face fraud charges. Clara nodded slowly. I would need guarantees that the neighbors will be included in the process. Of course. And total creative freedom. I wouldn't expect less. Clara finally managed a small smile. And Leo? Alex's expression softened. He's been drawing pictures of you every day. He says his house doesn't feel like home without you. Clara felt tears forming in her eyes. I don't feel at home without him either, she admitted. A childish voice interrupted the moment. Clara? Both turned to see Leo running towards them from the car, followed by Mrs. Gable, who was trying to catch him. Leo! Clara knelt, receiving the boy in a tight hug. Look at you, kid. How are you? I missed you so much, Leo exclaimed, clinging to her. Why did you leave? Don't you love us anymore? Of course, I love you, my child, Clara replied, wiping away a tear. Sometimes adults have disagreements, but that doesn't mean we stop loving. Leo looked at his father with a serious expression. Dad promised he would apologize to you and bring you back. Did he apologize yet? Alex smiled sheepishly. Yes, I already did. And are you coming back with us? Leo asked Clara with pleading eyes. Clara looked at Alex, who silently awaited her answer. Yes, she said finally. But on one condition. Which one? Father and son asked in unison. That you let me redesign not only this neighborhood, she gestured around, but also our way of being a family. Alex looked at her intently, understanding the deeper meaning of her words. That sounds like a perfect project, he replied softly. Leo, not fully understanding the exchange between the adults but happy with the outcome, jumped for joy. Awesome! Clara's coming home. As the three walked towards the car, followed by a smiling Mrs. Gable, the neighborhood residents applauded spontaneously. They didn't understand all the details, but they recognized the beginning of something important. The reconstruction not only of a neighborhood but of three broken hearts that, together, could form something new and beautiful. A warm November sun illuminated the streets of historic downtown, where scaffolding and construction activity had replaced protest banners. Clara, wearing a hard hat and with blueprints under her arm, supervised the restoration of the building on Messon Street, number 25. The original arch turned out perfect, she commented to one of the master masons. It's just as I remembered it from when I lived here with my brother. It was difficult, architect, but it was worth it, the man replied proudly. These buildings have soul. Clara smiled, observing how the Art Deco facade regained its original splendor, while the interiors were adapted to house a community cultural center. 6 months had passed since her return to the Sterling mansion. Now not as a nanny, but as the director of the Urban Revitalization Project. Her phone vibrated. A message from Alex. Leo refuses to wear his tie for the presentation. He says he'll only listen to you. Clara quickly replied, Tell him if he wears the tie, we'll buy him that chemistry set he wants so much. 3 dots appeared immediately, followed by the reply, It worked. Your magic with him. We'll wait for you at City Hall at 5. Clara put the phone away with a smile. Her relationship with Alex had evolved slowly over these months, from professional partners to close friends, and lately, something deeper that neither had yet put into words. Architect, one of the workers called. We found something strange on the roof of the main building. Clara followed him, intrigued. Upon reaching the terrace of the old apartment building where she had lived with her brother, she noticed the workers had uncovered a hidden structure behind years of neglect. A small, sealed door, almost invisible in the wall. "I've never seen this," she murmured, examining the curious design in the stone surrounding the entrance. "And I spent years in this building. Should we open it?" the foreman asked. Clara hesitated for a moment. "No, let's finish the scheduled work for today first. I'll investigate this personally later." As she descended the stairs, an idea began to form in her mind. She vaguely remembered including a special space in the original plans for the Lincoln Park Tower, an architectural surprise she had never mentioned to the clients. Could it be possible? At City Hall, Alex nervously adjusted his tie while waiting with Leo. The boy, now almost 9, had grown several inches and displayed a confidence that would have been unthinkable months ago. "Where's Clara?" Leo asked for the 3rd time. "It's almost time." "She'll be here," Alex assured him. "She's never let us down, right?" Leo shook his head. "Dad, why don't you ask Clara to be your girlfriend?" Alex nearly choked on his own saliva. "Why do you ask that?" "Because you look at her like Michael's dad looks at his new wife," Leo replied with the devastating frankness of a child. "And because you're happier when she's around." "Me too." Alex knelt in front of his son. "Would you like Clara to be something more than our friend?" "Obviously," Leo exclaimed. "She's already like family. You guys just need to realize it." A soft laugh interrupted the conversation. Clara had arrived, elegant in a cream-colored pantsuit, her blueprints under her arm and an amused expression on her face. "What do we need to realize?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Leo opened his mouth, but Alex gently stopped him. "That it's time to go in," he improvised, winking at his son. "The presentation is about to begin." The City Hall chamber was full. Officials, neighborhood residents, journalists, and business people had gathered for the official presentation of the revitalization project. In the front row, Mrs. Gable waited, proud as a grandmother at a school play. When Clara went up to the podium alongside Alex, an expectant silence filled the room. For months, the collaboration between the disgraced architect and the powerful businessman had been a topic of speculation in the city's social and professional circles. "Good afternoon, everyone," Alex began. "Today, we are not just presenting a real estate project, but a new vision of how to develop our city, respecting its history, honoring its inhabitants, and building a future that includes us all." The applause was warm but restrained. When Clara took the microphone, her voice conveyed an emotion that moved even the most skeptical. "A little over 6 months ago, I was standing in front of these same buildings, in the rain, homeless and hopeless," she said. "Today, I am here to demonstrate that there is always another chance, another possible design, another way to build." The presentation continued with Leo helping unveil the model of the renovated project. Instead of glass skyscrapers, it showed the historic buildings with community spaces, small local businesses, and accessible housing. The jewel of the project, the old Art Deco building, converted into a cultural center with space for local artists. When the formal presentation ended, attendees gathered to examine the plans and ask questions. Clara responded with passion and knowledge, while Alex watched her from a distance, admiring how she had regained her confidence and professional brilliance. An elderly woman approached Alex. "My family has lived in that building for 3 generations, she said, pointing to one of the plans. "I thought we'd have to leave. Thank you for listening." "Don't thank me," Alex replied sincerely. "It was Clara who taught us to listen." As the crowd began to disperse, Clara approached Alex and Leo. "I have a surprise for you," she announced, her eyes shining. "But we'll have to go to the Lincoln Park Tower." "Now?" Alex asked, confused. "It has to be today," Clara insisted. "Trust me." Dusk was falling over Chicago when Alex's car stopped in front of the elegant Lincoln Park Tower, Clara's first major project and where Alex had lived with Eleanor and Leo. "We haven't been here since." Alex left the sentence unfinished, but Clara nodded in understanding. I know. That's why it's important. They took the elevator to the top floor. Clara led them to a service door that led to the rooftop. When I designed this building, I included a secret element, she explained as they climbed the metal staircase. Something that didn't appear in the official plans, an architectural surprise that would only be visible on certain dates of the year. Upon reaching the rooftop, Clara led them towards what seemed like a simple wall. The evening sun projected its light at a specific angle, revealing a barely visible geometric pattern on the surface. Today is November 13th, Clara said. Do you know what day it is, Leo? The boy thought for a moment. The day Mom died, he replied in a low voice. Alex looked at Clara in surprise. How did you know? I researched it when I was designing the building, she explained. I wanted to create something special, something meaningful. Clara pressed a specific sequence on the geometric pattern. With a soft click, a section of the wall slid to one side, revealing a hidden entrance. What is this? Alex asked, astonished. A secret garden, Clara replied, designed to heal the heart. The three entered a surprising space. A small circular garden, protected by glass walls that allowed views of the sky but sheltered it from the wind. Plants and flowers grew in abundance, some even climbing the walls. In the center, a crystal-clear water fountain murmured softly. The setting sun bathed everything in a golden light. It's beautiful, Alex murmured. How is it possible we never knew about this? I designed it inspired by my brother, Clara explained, as Leo explored the space with wonder. During his illness, he always dreamed of a rooftop garden, a place where he could feel close to the sky but protected. The entrance only reveals itself when the evening sun hits it at that specific angle, and that only happens a few days a year. And how did you know today was one of those days? Alex asked. I calculated it when I designed the building. Today is one of them. Leo called them from the center of the garden. Dad, Clara, look at this. Next to the fountain was a small stone compartment. Inside, protected by a hermetic glass box, was a letter with Alex's name written in elegant calligraphy. It's Eleanor's handwriting, Alex said. His voice choked with emotion. Did she discover it? When I showed her the finished building, I mentioned there was a secret, Clara explained softly. I was an enthusiastic young architect. I wanted to impress. Eleanor promised me she wouldn't tell anyone until she found it herself. With trembling hands, Alex opened the box and took out the letter. As he read in silence, tears began to stream down his cheeks. Finally, he looked up at Clara. She knew she was sick, he said, his voice breaking. She never told me. She didn't want to worry me. This letter is her farewell, but also her wish for us, for Leo and for me. She says we should find a way to be happy again. Clara approached and took his hand. Eleanor found this place a few weeks before the accident. She wrote to me to tell me. She planned to show it to you. But Alex looked at the garden, then at his son, and finally at Clara. I don't believe in coincidences, he said. That you found Leo that day in the park, that you were the architect of this building, that we are here now. There's a larger design in all of this. Leo approached and took both their hands. Are you going to ask Clara to be your girlfriend now, Dad? He asked with childish impatience. Alex laughed through his tears, looking at Clara with a silent question in his eyes. Maybe we should redesign our relationship, she suggested, smiling through her own tears. Like we did with the historic downtown project, preserving what's valuable, renovating what's necessary. Is that a yes? Leo insisted. Clara knelt in front of the boy. That means I want to be part of your family, kid, if you and your dad will have me. Leo hugged her tightly. You're already part of our family, Clara. You guys just needed to realize it. Alex joined the hug, enveloping them both with his arms. In that secret garden, bathed by the last rays of the sun, the three felt something complete. A cycle that began with a broken bicycle in the rain now blossomed in a secret garden above the city rooftops. Thank you for repairing us, Clara, Alex whispered in her ear. Not just Leo's bicycle, but our hearts. Clara smiled, remembering that rainy day that now seemed like the beginning of a perfectly designed plan. Sometimes, she replied softly, we must lose everything to find what we really need. And as the sun set behind the city buildings, a gentle breeze stirred the flowers of the secret garden, as if someone from a distant place gave their blessing to this rebuilt family. 5 years had passed since that afternoon in the secret garden. Chicago's historic downtown shone under the spring sun, its centuries-old buildings lovingly restored, coexisting harmoniously with discreet modern elements that had revitalized the area without destroying its essence. In the main square, where Clara had once organized protests, an open-air exhibition was now being inaugurated, Architecture with Soul, the rebirth of historic downtown. It showcased photographs of the before and after of the ambitious project that had transformed not only the urban space but the entire city's construction philosophy. Clara Evans Sterling, elegant in a simple olive green dress, walked through the exhibition surrounded by admirers, architecture students, and grateful neighbors. At 39, she had not only regained her professional prestige, but had become a reference for a new architectural current that prioritized cultural preservation and social inclusion. My wife is too modest to say it, Alex commented to a group of international investors. But her vision has increased not only the cultural value but also the economic value of the entire area. Proof that doing the right thing can also be good business. A few meters away, Mrs. Gable, now director of the community center installed in the old Messon Street building, guided a group of tourists. This building is special, she explained proudly. Our architect lived here when she was young. Afterward, she went through hard times, even lived on the street. And now, look what she has created. Leo, now a 14-year-old teenager, slipped away from the crowd and approached Clara. Everyone's impressed, but I'm bored, he confessed with a knowing smile. Can we go now? I have to finish my model for the school competition. Clara affectionately ruffled his hair, now darker and more rebellious. 10 more minutes, kid. Your father is closing that deal with the German investors for the foundation. It's always 10 more minutes, Leo protested without real annoyance. By the way, Sophie keeps asking when we're coming home. Mentioning his 4-year-old little sister, Leo's face transformed. The adoration he felt for the girl was evident to everyone. Your godmother is entertaining her, Clara replied. Mrs. Gable promised her cookies and stories, so we have some time. Alex joined them, putting an arm around Clara's waist. Done. The Architects of Tomorrow Foundation will receive funding for the next 5 years. We can grant scholarships to 50 more students from vulnerable communities. Clara smiled, remembering her own past. 50 future architects who won't have to abandon their dreams due to economic hardship. A reporter approached, microphone in hand. Architect Evan Sterling, your story is fascinating. From rising star to homeless and then to revolutionizing social architecture in Chicago. What was the hardest part of your journey? Clara glanced briefly at Alex and Leo before answering. Losing hope, she said sincerely. When I fixed that crying boy's bicycle in the rain, I didn't know I was taking the first step to rebuilding my own life. The reporter turned the microphone towards Alex. Mr. Sterling, how did your business vision change after meeting your now wife? I understood that the true legacy isn't in how many buildings you construct, but in how those buildings build community, Alex replied. Sterling Evans Constructions has not only grown economically, we've grown in purpose. When the interview ended, the family headed towards their car, saying goodbye to the guests. Should we stop by the secret garden before picking up Sophie? Alex suggested. Today is one of those special days when the light reveals the entrance. Leo nodded enthusiastically. I have to show you guys something there, he said mysteriously. The secret garden on the rooftop of the Lincoln Park Tower had flourished even more over the years. Clara had refined the irrigation system and expanded the variety of plants, turning that hidden space into a true urban paradise. The family visited it religiously on every important anniversary. The day they met, their wedding day, Eleanor's birthday. As Alex opened the secret entrance, following the ritual Clara had designed years ago, Leo took something out of his backpack. A small but detailed model. Once inside the garden, the teenager placed his creation on the central fountain. "It's my project for the national competition," he explained. "I call it Cycles." Clara and Alex observed the model with astonishment. It represented a circular plaza with different levels interconnected by ramps and stairs. In the center, a structure combining bicycle elements with architectural forms created a dynamic focal point. "It's inspired by our story," Leo continued. "Each level represents a stage. Pain, encounter, reconstruction, rebirth." Clara knelt to examine the details. The designs showed clear influences of her own style but with an undeniable freshness and originality. "It's extraordinary, Leo," she said with sincere admiration. "You have a natural gift." "Like his mother?" Alex added, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "Eleanor would be very proud." Leo smiled with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. "I have the memories you've told me about her, Dad. And I have Clara, who taught me to see the beauty even in what's broken." Clara hugged the teenager, remembering the scared boy with the scraped knee she had met years ago. "You know, when I found you with your broken bicycle, I never imagined you'd be designing plazas based on that experience. It's just that everything has a purpose," Leo replied with a wisdom beyond his years. "As Grandpa Edward says when he visits from Europe, even the hardest stones can become foundations for something beautiful." Alex, who had approached Eleanor's letter, which remained guarded in its glass case, smiled hearing his son mention his father. The reconciliation with Edward Sterling Sr. had been another of these year's miracles, another circle closing. "We should go," Alex said, checking his watch. "Mrs. Gable will kill us if we're late for Sophie." As they left the secret garden, Clara paused for a moment to contemplate the city stretching out at her feet. From that height, she could distinguish the restored historic downtown, the park where she had repaired Leo's bicycle, even the area where she had once slept on the streets. Alex came up from behind, hugging her. "What are you thinking about, architect?" "About the plans we can never draw," she replied, leaning against his chest. "Those of our own lives. Those are written day by day," Alex philosophized. "With every decision, every encounter. Like repairing a crying child's bicycle, or stopping to observe an extraordinary woman doing something apparently simple." Clara turned in his arms to look him in the eyes. "Do you know what's most surprising about all this?" "What?" That beggar and that millionaire turned out to be exactly what the other needed." Leo called them from the door, feigning teenage exasperation at his parents' displays of affection. "Hey, lovebirds. Sophie's waiting, and I'm hungry." Alex and Clara laughed, intertwining their hands as they followed Leo. As they left the building, a child sped by on a bicycle, nearly losing balance on a sharp curve. Clara instinctively took a step forward, ready to help if he fell, but the little one regained control and continued on his way. "Some things never change," Alex commented with a smile. "Luckily," Clara replied, "there will always be bicycles to repair, buildings to restore, and hearts to heal." And as the Sterling Evans family walked away through the streets of a city they had helped transform, the evening sun cast their elongated shadows on the pavement. Three figures once broken, now united in a perfect design that no architect could have ever planned. This tale of unexpected encounters and profound transformations reminds us that sometimes the most broken paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. Clara, Alex, and Leo's journey shows that resilience, kindness, and the courage to rebuild can turn a life of hardship into a legacy of hope and purpose. It's a testament to the idea that true wealth lies not in what we own, but in the connections we forge and the positive impact we have on the world around us. What do you believe is the most important blueprint for a happy life? Is it careful planning, embracing the unexpected, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts and wisdom in the comments below. If the story of mended hearts and revitalized communities inspired you, please give it a huge thumbs up, subscribe for more stories of hope and second chances, and share it with someone who believes that even from rubble, beauty can rise. Because often it's not about the perfection of the plan, but the love and dedication poured into the rebuilding.